I know that you have your own take on something regarding the beloved NCAA in regards to a team in Middle America, the Cornhuskers, I believe.
A team that anybody that listens to me talk about Big Ten football, you know that I do not like very much. Led by a coach that I do not like very much. And this is Scott Frost in the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And he has been a doo-doo head since 1997 at least. And he has not stopped being a doo-doo head. And he leads a kind of a poverty school at this point. Nebraska has fallen so far from their heights. Now the 9-3 seasons that they were sick of having have become 3-9 seasons, and they're really sick of those. But I have to defend Nebraska because the NCAA is so inept as an organization that they have Nebraska on the right side of history. I mean, that should be impossible. But I'm going to get into this. So we want to talk about the NCAA and how neutered they are and how they don't do anything. We've had all these rules in effect forever about what is permitted and permitted benefits and impermissible benefits. And we know that teams do not play it kosher. They don't. There's been pay for play forever. And NIL has just gotten this completely out of control. And NIL happened in this explosion, this absolute absurdity that we're seeing where high school kids are signing deals to make $8 million across their college career before they've ever stepped on a college field. This is not good for the sport. And ultimately, I would say it's not good for these kids. A lot of these kids, if you hand them $8 million at 17, 18 years old, what is that going to do for their work ethic and making it to the next level? How quickly are they going to end up burning through that money? And what happens when you didn't put in the work and didn't have an NFL career and didn't get that first or second NFL contract? Who are we helping here? Other than helping schools cheat under the guise of now it's no longer cheating. But there are rules, there's guidelines to NIL. And this happened because the NCAA is so incompetent and they thought they were untouchable. They thought that their model could never be challenged. The courts were going to uphold the amateur college model forever and that they didn't have to adjust with the times. They were so arrogant. It wasn't just that, listen, I agree with the basis of the NCAA model. But there were so many things that were far too restrictive that made them open for challenges. And because they didn't, we've had decades of this. This isn't something that happened overnight. We're talking about players getting in trouble for getting tattoos, right? Which we all make fun of Ohio State. And it's dumb. But at the same time, it's ridiculous, right? Like, if a player wants to go get tattoos and if Parler's willing to do it for free because he plays for the school I like, who's that hurting? That's not hurting anybody. The current model is going to hurt a lot of people, but the NCAA allowed this with their rigidity. And what happened is a bunch of overzealous politicians, lawmakers that only care about reelection, that don't know anything about the workings of college football or its institutions. They just went out and started passing laws. They said, screw the NCAA. We're just going to make it. We're just going to neuter it. We're just going to do things our way. We're going to rule that our state, you're allowed to get these impermissible benefits that were previously impermissible. And this has had a horrible trickle-down effect, and now the NCAA that's completely neuter, they can hardly do anything about it. You got conference commissioners right now petitioning the federal government. You got Greg Sankey of the SEC, and I don't even remember the Pac-12 commissioner's name. He's pretty much useless. But these two guys are literally petitioning, meeting with politicians, federal politicians, saying, listen, you've got to do something about this. It's out of control. Basically saying, we as the NCAA are powerless to do anything about it. Do you know what the NCAA is doing right now? The NCAA comes out recently and they punish Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, all the garbage that's going on, and they punish them because a special teams analyst, not a coach, was giving extra instruction to special teams players. Now, mind you, this is a 3-9 Nebraska team that had probably the worst special teams in all of college football. They literally lost multiple games because of special teams. Dylan, you would know this as their special teams. And listen, Scott Frost threw their punter right under the bus. Punter kicks to the wrong side of the field. Coverage is on the right side of the field. Punter kicks to the left. Michigan State returns it to a house in a game that was completely over, ends up winning that football game. That was not an uncommon, uncharacteristic mistake of this Nebraska team. I don't blame them for wanting to get extra practice in on the special teams. But what is so absurd about this, so they suspend Scott Frost. He's got a 5-day suspension in season. It doesn't start now. They fine him a little bit. They go through their slap on the wrist penalties, but they make this big deal out of it, of penalizing Nebraska for a rule that, one, it's absurd. Because in college, you have a set amount of on-field coaches you're allowed to have. You're only allowed, I think it's 9 on-field coaches. I might be a little off on the number. And those are the only coaches that during practice, they can give direct instruction to players. Most of college football does not follow these rules. It is the most open of secrets. Analysts coach. And the way they'll do it is an analyst will be on the sidelines watching practice, and he'll tell a grad assistant, hey, go tell the position coach this, and then the position coach will go tell the players. There's a lot of ways that coaches get around this. It is a very common practice. What is even worse about this is this rule is probably changing in the immediate future. It is under review, and the NCAA is on the verge of making it so that you can have unlimited coaches. You don't have to call them analysts anymore, and the analysts are actually allowed to coach. So a rule that we know is bad, that's inconsequential, that everybody ignores, that is about to change, you are punishing a 3-9 Nebraska team for daring to get their punter a little extra practice so that he understands the call on which side of the field to kick the ball to. Meanwhile, your entire sport is in upheaval. You have Texas A&M writing $30 million checks to get a single recruiting class. You have paper play everywhere. Every coach is crying, from Dabo Swinney to freaking Nicky Saban, right? Like this, your whole entire empire is on the verge of collapse. And you are out here in the Midwest going after a 3-9 Nebraska team for a rule that's about to change. What are you doing? What are we doing here? It is so disgusting how neuter the NCAA has become. And then they have the audacity to hand down these frivolous things. Why are you wasting your time investigating Nebraska? And maybe the worst part in all of this, the complaint was lodged by a fired Nebraska analyst that was upset that he was let go. He turned Nebraska into the NCAA for this. And I'm sitting here like, I'm honest to God, I have to applaud Scott Frost for a little bit, because if a coach on your team was pissed off at you, and the most dirt they could possibly turn you in for was you had an analyst giving on-field instruction, you are at least running a clean program, doing things the right way. It might not be going well, but you are at least doing things proper, because if that's the most dirt they've got on you, I mean, this is ridiculous. We know this started the beginning of the season. Michigan got in some hot water. Now, they addressed it immediately. Ryan Osborne was an analyst. He was doing some on-field coaching with the defensive ends. They addressed it. They made changes. But, and that was part of what the NCAA said. They said this was going on and Scott Frost didn't do enough to rectify the situation. Man, who cares? Get out of here with this BS. It's ridiculous. The NCAA needs to pull their head out of the rectum. And it is so far up there, man. And they have got to actually do something to benefit the sport, because all they have done is harm it, whether they've harmed it by dumb actions that they've taken or incompetence and inaction. And all they're doing is picking out things that don't matter and ignoring all the real problems they have. I am sick of it, man. I am absolutely sick of it. I want the NCAA to either completely disband or actually do something and make yourself useful.
I think my own personal theory on that is they're just terrified of what Nebraska is going to look like next year.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on